a brutally long week, you're finally unwinding on the couch, and your group chat just lights up.
Oh, I know exactly where this is going.
Right. It is an invitation to dinner at like that trendy new tasting menu place that everyone's been constantly talking about on social media.
Yeah, the one you can't escape on your feed.
Exactly. So you look at the menu online, and a single appetizer costs, well, basically what you budgeted for groceries for the next 3 days.
Which is just, I mean, it's terrifying.
Totally terrifying. And you shouldn't go. The math just does not work at
Hell.
all. But, you also know that if you say no, someone in the chat is going to ask why.
Yeah.
And you really, really are not in the mood to explain the intricacies of your personal budget to people who seemingly just never have to think about theirs.
So you cave. I mean, you order way more than you actually planned just to keep up with the table's vibe, right?
Right, for sure.
And then you just sit there with this low-level anxiety humming in the background all night long.
Yes. And then the check comes. Everyone agrees to just, split the bill evenly, even though you strategically only ordered like a side salad and a mocktail.
Oh, the dreaded even split.
It's the worst. You hand over a credit card that is probably already carrying a balance. And on the ride home, you feel this incredibly conflicting mix of emotions. You are happy because you were there, you were part of the group, you belonged.
But you feel totally hollow.
Exactly, hollow. Because some quiet part of you knows that belonging just cost you like another month of real financial progress. And that exact feeling is what we are tearing apart today.
It is such a visceral scenario.
Yeah.
And it gets right to the heart of the tension between performing for the world and actually building for yourself.
Right there. So we are jumping into a really eye-opening chapter from a text titled Mistakes Women Make. The specific chapter we're focusing on is called Spending to Belong, Not to Build.
Which is such a powerful title.
It really is. It explores the hidden psychological and social costs that are actively sabotaging financial progress for so many people. And our goal for this deep dive is to unpack exactly why so many incredibly smart, ambitious people, specifically women, in this context, feel totally paralyzed financially despite, earning pretty good money.
Right, because it's not an income problem.
Exactly. We are going to look at how to make the psychological shift from just looking wealthy to actually building wealth. Whether you are actively trying to overhaul your budget right now or you just want to understand the invisible social pressures that are secretly steering your spending, this is going to be incredibly revealing.
The word invisible is really key there because these pressures are so deeply normalized in our daily routines that we rarely stop to recognize them as active choices anymore. We just assume this is what life costs.
Oh, okay. Let's unpack this because I kept thinking about this concept of performance while reading the source material. It feels like we treat wealth like a theater production.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, you have the on-stage performance, right? That is the curated social media feed, the designer bags, the aesthetic luxury vacations. It is all fancy props and dramatic lighting designed for an audience.
Yeah, it's a show.
But then you have the backstage reality, the actual plumbing, the electrical work, the frankly boring spreadsheets of a net worth statement. Our society completely confuses the onstage performance with the backstage reality.
What's fascinating here is that they are completely disconnected. And the text hits on a really uncomfortable truth, which is that the women who look the most put together financially are very often not the wealthiest ones.
Wow. Yeah.
You might see a woman in an impeccable head-to-toe designer outfit, but backstage she is carrying stomach-dropping credit card debt. She's putting a luxury resort on a travel card she has been rolling a balance on for 2 years just to maintain that aesthetic of success.
And contrast that with the woman who drives a highly reliable 10-year-old sedan, brings her lunch to the office 4 days a week, and is just quietly shoveling money into an investment portfolio.
Exactly. She doesn't look wealthy to the outside world.
Right, but she is the one who has the backstage mechanics to actually retire comfortably on her own terms.
Yeah.
It really shifts the focus from what you bring in to what you actually keep. Because, earning $10,000 a month means absolutely nothing if your social performance costs you $9,900.
It's so true. The fundamental equation of wealth is just net worth equals what you own minus what you owe. The math is entirely indifferent to your social standing. The numbers just do what they do.
Right.
But our psychology isn't indifferent. And that is why this gap between the onstage performance and the backstage reality is so vast, especially for women.
Well, let me push back on that for a second.
Yeah.
Because is this intense pressure to perform really a financial issue at its core? Or is this just basic human biology.
What do you mean?
Like, we are social creatures, right?
Mhm.
We have been seeking status in groups since the dawn of time. Why frame this as a uniquely modern wealth problem?
Because while the drive for status is absolutely human nature, the financial mechanism we are forced to use to achieve it has been completely hijacked.
Oh, okay.
We are no longer just trying to be respected in our local village, right?
Yeah.
We are purchasing extremely expensive consumer goods to signal our value. And for women, the source identifies that this isn't just a lack of personal discipline. It is driven by a unique, systemic set of social pressures.
Yep.
And it categorizes these as 4 silent wealth killers.
Let's dig into those, because the first one really made me pause. The text calls it the appearance tax.
Oh, yeah. The appearance tax is huge.
It is. This is the expectation that women need to invest significantly more in their physical presentation than men do, both professionally and socially. We're talking about hair, nails, skincare routines, makeup, wardrobe updates. The text points out these aren't just vanity projects. They are treated as social currency.
It is a literal tax on your purse and your peace of mind. And it's driven largely by a fear of judgment.
I hear what you're saying, but let's be real about the workplace for a second.
Yeah.
Sometimes looking the part is an actual career requirement.
Right. Absolutely.
If a woman shows up to a major corporate pitch looking unpolished or unkempt by societal standards, it can literally impact her income and her career trajectory. So how do we draw the line between a necessary career investment and self-sabotage?
That is a phenomenal question. And it is where the nuance really matters. The baseline professional standard, buying a well-fitting suit for an interview, maintaining a neat appearance, that is an investment in your career.
Okay.
The appearance tax kicks in when it crosses into fear-driven, escalating maintenance that doesn't actually yield a professional return.
Like what?
It's getting the really expensive preventative cosmetic procedures because everyone else in your social circle is doing it and you're afraid of looking older than them. It is the belief that you cannot be seen in the same formal dress twice on Instagram.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That isn't professional maintenance. That is a tax levied by social comparison.
That makes a lot of sense. The diminishing returns on that spending are steep. And that transitions perfectly into the second wealth killer, the belonging budget.
This one is brutal.
It felt so deeply relatable. Women's friendships are so often built entirely around expensive shared experiences. It is the dinners, the elaborate bridal showers, the destination girls' trips, and the brutal part is the social cost of opting out.
Because absence is remembered. If you say no to the destination bachelorette party, people notice. It creates this silent anxiety that if you don't spend the money to be present, you will slowly be phased out of the inner circle.
Which bleeds right into the third killer, the generosity trap.
Right.
We are socialized from a very young age to be caretakers, to give our time, our emotional labor, and crucially, our resources. Picking up the tab at lunch to be polite, sponsoring a friend's charity event, or acting as the financial backstop for family members.
Generosity is a beautiful human trait, obviously, but the text makes a critical distinction here. It becomes a trap when you are giving from an empty cup.
Yeah, that's the danger.
You are sacrificing your own very shaky financial foundation to ensure everyone else feels taken care of. But you cannot be the safety net if your own strings are fraying.
Exactly. And then we get to the fourth killer. This is the one that is so insidious because it actively disguises itself as success. The lifestyle inflation spiral.
That's a spiral.
You get a promotion, you make a little more money, so you move to a slightly nicer apartment with better amenities, you upgrade your wardrobe to match your new job title, you start going to the mid-tier grocery store instead of the discount one, your expenses just effortlessly rise in lockstep with your income upgrades.
And people often realize way too late that they have doubled their salary over a decade, but their savings account looks exactly the same as it did when they were making entry-level wages.
Yes. When I was reading about this, it made me think of the science concept of how a gas expands to fill whatever container it is in. It doesn't matter how much more room, how much more income you get.
It just fills the space.
Exactly. If you do not deliberately put up a wall, the pressure of your spending will immediately expand to push against the new walls of your income. It leaves you with zero breathing room. But again, I have to ask, where is the line?
Right.
If you work 60 hours a week to get a promotion, don't you deserve to experience the fruit of that labor? It's like you're on a treadmill and you just keep increasing the speed of your income, but you aren't actually moving forward financially. At what point does treating yourself become a trap?
Well, the text offers a very specific mechanical antidote to that expanding gas problem. It says that before you ever upgrade your lifestyle, you must upgrade your investment contributions first.
Oh, I like that.
It has to be sequential.
Right.
So if you get a raise, the first place that new money goes, before you even see it in your checking account, ideally, is into your investments or savings. You widen the walls of your financial security first.
Right. Secure the backstage.
Exactly. Then, whatever fraction of the raise is left over can go toward the nicer apartment or the better groceries. You still get to treat yourself, but you are forcing the gap between your income and your expenses to actually widen rather than just shifting the goalposts.
That structural barrier is so smart because if you just rely on willpower, the social pressure will win every time. To really hammer home how powerful these pressures are, the source brings the belonging budget out of the realm of theory and looks at the actual math with a case study of a woman named Chiamaka.
Chiamaka's story is vital because she is not a caricature of financial ruin.
No, not at all.
She earns a very decent salary. She isn't reckless. She isn't buying sports cars or going on wild designer shopping sprees. But at the end of every month, she looks at her account and the money has just vanished.
Let's look at the anatomy of one typical month for her because it is so normal.
Yeah.
She goes to a friend's birthday dinner and does the classic split bill.
Yeah.
$85. A colleague is having a baby, so she chips in for the group gift. $60. A cousin is getting married. Bridal contribution. $100.
Yeah.
There's a deposit for a girls' trip that she secretly cannot afford but doesn't want to miss. $200.
It really adds up fast.
It does. She needs a new outfit for that trip. $150. She gets her nails done specifically for the trip. $55. And she goes out for drinks with work colleagues on a Thursday just so she doesn't seem antisocial. $70.
When you list it out like that, you start to see the psychological weight of those transactions. She did not spend that money out of a deep, burning desire to buy those specific things.
No.
She spent it out of obligation, out of the fear of what happens if she says no.
Exactly. The total for that month is $720. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The scary part is that none of those individual purchases triggered the alarm bells of, like, bad financial decisions.
Right. They all seem fine in isolation.
Yeah, spending $55 on your nails isn't going to bankrupt you. Chipping in $60 for a baby stroller seems totally normal. But it is this death by 1,000 paper cuts, that compound loss of agency. That $720 a month becomes $8,640 a year. Over 5 years, that is over $43,000.
Think about the backstage reality that $43,000 could build.
It's massive.
That is a property deposit. That is a fully funded emergency fund that lets you quit a toxic job without panicking. That is a massive head start on an investment portfolio. And instead, it just vanished into split appetizers and aesthetic maintenance.
The source makes a really profound distinction here about how we experience the things we buy. It differentiates between spending that fills you up and spending that hollows you out.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, spending that fills you up is a conscious, proactive choice. It brings you genuine joy, it aligns with your actual values, and, you don't regret it when the bill comes. But spending that hollows you out is entirely reactive. It is driven by social anxiety, the fear of losing connection, or just the pressure to perform. It leaves you feeling exactly like that Friday night dinner scenario we started with.
Relieved that you didn't rock the boat, but deeply hollow inside. Because you just traded your future security for a temporary social pass.
Exactly.
So if the math is this destructive, if we are literally spending the equivalent of a house down payment on baby shower gifts, bachelorette trips, and round of drinks, why do we keep doing it? The text argues that the root cause isn't actually a math problem at all. It is an emotional and psychological problem fueled by the environment we live in. Specifically what it calls the comparison economy.
Right. The scale of comparison has fundamentally changed. Historically, you only really compared your lifestyle to your immediate neighbors, your coworkers, your local community. Now, because of social media, comparison is a 24-hour-a-day global job. You are no longer comparing your real life to your neighbor's real life. You are comparing your backstage reality to an influencer's heavily curated, highly sponsored onstage performance.
It is so pervasive. You see a former college roommate post a picture of a brand new SUV, and suddenly you are on Kelley Blue Book researching cars you don't even need.
Even though yours works just fine.
Your current car runs perfectly fine. Or you see a beautifully lit aesthetic kitchen renovation on your feed, and suddenly your fully functional, totally fine kitchen feels like a miserable failure. You convince yourself that the reason you feel chaotic in the mornings isn't because you're tired, it's because you don't have the right marble countertops.
Oh, that's such a common trap.
The source had a quote that absolutely stopped me in my tracks. It said, "Comparison is the thief of joy," and it turns out it's also the thief of your savings account.
That is brilliant because it highlights the financial mechanism of envy. Every single time you spend money to close a perceived gap in status between you and someone on your feed, you are actually just widening the gap in your own actual wealth. You are paying a premium to look like someone who is likely also faking it, and this ties directly into the trap of emotional spending.
Let's talk about that, because retail therapy has essentially become a socially sanctioned form of emotional avoidance. You get stressed out by a project at work, so you buy a new pair of shoes on your lunch break, you have a stressful argument with your partner, and suddenly it is midnight, and you are online shopping for throw pillows.
We use consumption to regulate our nervous systems.
But I really want to challenge the cultural messaging around this. Think about all the marketing taglines we are bombarded with constantly. You deserve it, treat yourself, invest in your rest. Are these companies actively weaponizing our emotional exhaustion against our wallets? Because they frame spending money not as consumption, but as an act of profound self-care?
Oh, they absolutely are weaponizing it. When you are feeling anxious or overwhelmed or powerless in your job or your relationships, spending money creates a very brief, incredibly compelling illusion of total control.
Wow, yeah.
You want something, you click a button, and it is yours. The dopamine hit when you complete that checkout is real, but the relief is entirely temporary. It evaporates the moment the package arrives, but the credit card bill is permanent. You have to realize that a credit card will always say yes to the question, can I afford this?
No.
It does not care about your emotional well-being.
The source poses a much harder, much better question to ask in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of asking if you can afford it, you have to ask, what am I actually feeling right now in my body? And is buying this item going to address that feeling, or is it just going to bury it for a few hours?
It is a confronting question because 99% of the time, the honest answer is that you don't need a new item. If you are exhausted, true emotional relief requires actual rest. If you are lonely, it requires genuine, vulnerable human connection. If you are anxious about a conflict, it requires having the difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Buying a new pair of boots does not resolve a systemic issue with your boss.
So to combat this, the text actually recommends doing a targeted social media audit. Take 2 weeks and just pay attention to your body when you are scrolling. Notice which specific accounts or platforms trigger that tight, urgent feeling of wanting to spend money. Then ruthlessly unfollow or mute them. You have to actively protect your peace of mind in order to protect your pocketbook.
It is about reducing the fiction. If you don't see the aesthetic kitchen, you don't have to use your willpower to resist buying it.
So what does this all mean? Once we recognize these emotional triggers, once we see the devastating math of the belonging budget, how do we actually implement change? How do we stop the bleeding?
Well, the text lays out a concrete framework.
Right, but it makes a really crucial point first. None of the math, none of the budgets will matter without a fundamental shift in how we view our own identity. It points out that truly wealthy women do not live in a state of constant deprivation. They're not sitting in the dark, hoarding pennies. They just spend intentionally.
And the framework provides the mechanics for that intentionality. There are 5 main steps. The very first step it outlines is zero-based budgeting. And this is not about restricting yourself, it is about direction. It means that before a new month even begins, you sit down and give every single dollar a specific job.
Right.
Your income minus your expenses, your savings, and your investments should equal exactly 0.
And just to clarify for everyone, that does not mean you spent your bank account down to 0. It means you accounted for everything.
Yeah.
I think of it like being a CEO. You wouldn't just leave employees sitting around the office without a job description, right? So you shouldn't do that with your money.
I love that analogy.
If you just leave a chunk of money sitting in your checking account with no assigned purpose, it is going to wander off. It is going to get distracted by a targeted ad or a spontaneous dinner invite. You have to tell it exactly where to go.
Exactly. And the genius of the framework is that it builds realism into that itinerary. Step 2 is creating a guilt-free spending category. And step 3 advocates for creating a dedicated Social fund. This is a game changer.
Yes.
Predictable life events, your friends getting married, baby showers, annual birthdays, these are not emergencies. They happen every single year. By setting aside a small, manageable amount every month into a specific fund, you remove the panic. When the invitation arrives, the money is already sitting there waiting to be used. You get to celebrate your people with genuine joy instead of financial dread.
And if the social fund is empty for that month, it forces you to practice step 4, which is the hardest skill of all. Learning to say no without providing a dissertation. The text emphasizes that "I can't make it this time" is a complete sentence.
It really is.
You do not owe your friend group a PowerPoint presentation on your debt repayment strategy. You just decline gracefully. And then step 5 is ruthlessly auditing and canceling unused subscriptions every 30 days.
But implementing these steps, the budgeting, the social fund, the graceful decline, the unsubscribing, only works if you address the psychological friction underneath.
Okay, we mean.
Why do strict budgets usually fail in the exact same way crash diets fail? Because we are trying to force a behavior that directly contradicts how we internally see ourselves.
Yes, the cognitive dissonance is too loud. If your internal narrative is "I am a hot mess with money," or "I just can't get a grip on my spending," your brain will subconsciously seek out decisions that validate that identity. You will sabotage your own budget just to prove yourself right.
This raises an important question. If you intentionally move away from that label, everything shifts. Instead of relying on sheer willpower, you start asking yourself one simple question before a purchase. Is this what a woman who is actively building wealth would do?
Let's look back at Chiamaka, the case study we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Her resolution was not to become a hermit. She didn't stop loving her friends or celebrating their milestones. She just stopped performing a level of wealth she did not possess backstage.
Right.
She set up her social fund. She learned to tolerate the slight discomfort of saying no to the events that drained her. And she successfully redirected $400 a month into her investments. She fundamentally changed the trajectory of her net worth, not by suddenly getting a massive raise, but simply by changing the internal story of what her money was actually for.
There is a line in the text that summarizes this perfectly. Wealthy women don't have more discipline, they have a clearer identity. Once you truly know who you are, a person who is prioritizing their future security, the discipline stops feeling like punishment. It just becomes the natural way you operate.
If you are listening to this right now and feeling a little bit of that uncomfortable sting of recognition, we're not going to just let you nod along and then open up a shouting tab. The source material demands action, and we want to challenge you to do the work.
Absolutely.
You don't have to overhaul your entire life today. Just pick one point of friction. Go into your phone settings right now and cancel one app subscription you forgot you're paying for. It takes 2 minutes, and it is a guaranteed win.
Or, if you are feeling brave, pull up your last 3 months of bank statements. Go through and highlight every single charge that was driven purely by social obligation or the fear of missing out.
Oof. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Seeing your own personal belonging budget written out in hard numbers is usually the exact wake-up call you need to start making a change. Write down an identity statement for yourself. I am someone who joyfully spends on X and confidently says no to Y.
Next time on The Deep Dive, we are moving to Chapter 3 of this text, which tackles a deeply emotionally charged dynamic, becoming the family ATM. We're going to explore the incredible friction of acting as the financial safety net for parents or siblings, and what happens when that generosity silently cannibalizes your own future. You absolutely will not want to miss that conversation.
To close out today, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We spent a lot of time talking about the fun of saying no to that Friday night dinner or the fear of opting out of the expensive trip. But if saying no to a financial commitment causes your friend group to actively pull away from you or judge you, it forces a really difficult question.
Yeah.
Is your social circle actually built on genuine connection and mutual support, or is it simply a network of mutual financial enabling? We invite you to sit with that. Do your closest relationships require a cover charge?
Think about that the next time your Friday night group chat lights up. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.